Welcome in to Stop the Takes, football pod focused on getting back to just talking ball. I'm Dakota, that's Austin, and we are live on YouTube evaluating the 2024 QB class, going through what the expectations were for them coming into this season at the spots they were drafted, what their 2024s look like, and then kind of going into what we expect them to look like going into 2025. We'll just kind of jump right into things. Austin, what were your immediate thoughts and reactions when this class was drafted last April, when six quarterbacks tied a record went in the top 12?
Well, I was definitely shocked when six went in the top 12, dude. I don't think anyone really expected that. It was basically Caleb, Jaden, and Drake were guaranteed in the top 5 to 10 range. And then the other three were kind of question marks. Like it felt like JJ's stock was rising through the draft process. Like that was a guy that some people early on in the draft process weren't even sure he was a first round talent. But then later later as we went, it seemed like, okay, this is definitely a top 10 player in the class. Now, Bo Nix and Michael Penix, people were all over the place on them, dude. Those were, okay, potentially into the first round, second round type players. No one, I mean, people, it was the biggest shock of the draft when Michael Penix was drafted at number 8 overall. So biggest shock of the draft. And then Bo Nix at 12, it was like one of those things where it's like, well, the Broncos need a quarterback, and Bo Nix is the last one on the board, so let's just take Bo Nix. And it kind of seemed like it was a good fit with Sean Payton. So just a fascinating way how that draft played out. And then I don't think it could have went better for the class overall in their rookie seasons. Of course, outside of JJ, who was hurt, pretty much all of them had their moments in their rookie year. Michael Penix didn't play that much, only in 3 games, but looked really good when he played. And of course, Jaden Daniels did what he did, lit the league on fire. So yeah, man, overall the class was just phenomenal year one, and it's one of the more fascinating classes going forward, man.
Yeah, it was a surprise to see all of them go, especially that high. I think even in the first round, I think it's safe enough to say that was kind of a surprise. You touched on JJ's kind of rise in the. Honestly, I would kind of equate it a little bit to kind of Jackson Dart-esque, right? What we just witnessed, where going into this process, nobody was really predicting him to be a first-round quarterback. JJ was a bit more like prototypical NFL quarterback style than Dart, but just rose drastically right before the draft, and then seeing all 12 of them, or all 6, go in the top 12 was a bit surprising. But I think you're right. Once the 5 had gone off the board, the Broncos were just sitting there thinking, well, we need a quarterback. But JJ potentially being the most surprising, though, because at that time, with the Vikings still having, Kirk on the roster at that time, and it looked like that was who their quarterback, or sorry, they didn't. They had just moved on from him, but had brought Sam Darnold in. With the Falcons taking Penix with Kirk just being brought in. So, all right, we kind of touched on Caleb the other day a little bit when that news broke. So we're going to start at the top. So we're going to start with the number 1 overall pick, which was, the one thing that we knew for sure was going to happen with this class. Yes. Going into that draft, we knew Caleb Williams. I mean, the generational tag had been thrown around a little bit. So the expectations for him were pretty high going in, and the common thing that was tossed around early on as well was, is this the best situation a number 1 overall pick had ever gone into?
Yeah, man, no question. I mean, what they did kind of leading into his rookie season was intriguing. I mean, bringing in Keenan Allen, drafting Rome Odunze in the same draft in the top 10, having DJ Moore from the Panthers trade that gave them this first overall pick to draft Caleb Williams. It was a fascinating supporting cast that he had year one. Didn't work out year one. There was some coaching woes, if you will. Coaching was not good. I think that was kind of the consensus of this situation, right? The offensive coaching just was not good in Chicago. The head coaching was not good in Chicago year one. So Caleb's rookie season was kind of up and down, man. Like he had some great moments. He had some rough moments. I would say the biggest issue with his rookie season was sack avoidance. He really caused a lot of his own sacks and a lot of his own pressure. The offensive line wasn't good. It was not good. However, Caleb just made it 10 times worse at times. So that was his biggest problem, but you still see the special. Like, you still see some of the
Yeah.
special that you saw from USC that kind of, like you said, gave him that generational tag, if you will. Best QB prospect since Trevor Lawrence is what people were saying. And he still has that in him, no question about it. And he showed some of that his rookie season.
Absolutely, and he is fascinating because it's one of those case studies on kind of what getting thrust into the NFL in a with a bad offensive line can do to a quarterback's kind of psyche, and the way they play. Because to your point, he was always able to do, you know, the avoidance, the dancing around, extending plays thing in college, which is a lot easier to do at that level against that competition. But then when you get to the NFL, you usually get yourself into trouble when you do that. You're either going to run yourself into sacks and then make your offensive line look worse, or you're going to extend a play and then make a mistake because the windows are so much tighter. You're not going to be able to throw across your body, do those things as much. And I think that was the biggest learning curve for him was he wants to be an extender. Like, that is the way he wants to play, is just to keep moving and keep a play going, and then until it breaks down defensively. But when that offensive line just clearly wasn't good from the start, it seemed to almost kind of break him a little bit. Where when you watch like a lot of the plays, you know, he is panicking before the pressure even gets to him. And I think it's a similar thing that's happened to other quarterbacks when, like, you know, when Darnold first got drafted by the Jets and they didn't have a very good offensive line. Honestly, same thing was kind of true for Baker when they got him. But just being in a situation like that, Will Levis, you know, this past season, who's just also not great, but like, it's hard to truly evaluate somebody when they're in that situation, and it's kind of broken the way that they play. That being said, he did have probably the best supporting cast out of the you know, these rookie quarterbacks outside of JJ, who obviously didn't get to play. I don't think it's argument to say he had the best supporting cast. So, you know, excuses for the offensive line in terms of what they were able to do from a protection perspective, but he did have a lot of weapons out there to work with.
He did, but I also think the weapons just weren't as good as we expected them to be.
Yeah.
Like, Keenan Allen just kind of lost it, right? He just isn't the same player he used to be. And Roma Dunze didn't light the league on fire, kind of like people expected. But I also think that just comes down to the offense, man. I mean, some of the offense and the spacing they had last year, it was abysmal, man.
Yeah.
Like, it just did not look like a good NFL offense. And that's what makes it intriguing with Caleb kind of going forward, man. You bring Ben Johnson in, the offensive mastermind from Detroit. You add even more weaponry in the draft with Luther Burden, Colson Loveland. So I mean, like, that's what makes Caleb even more intriguing, because he still, like I just mentioned, he still has that generational talent in him. Like, that's still within him. Now it feels like they really did fix the supporting cast. Like, it feels better than what they did last year, even though a lot of people were still high on what they did last year. Like, of course, revamp the offensive line. So it's going to be intriguing what he does in 2025.
Yeah, and you know, you touched on the fact that he still had big plays this year. You know, there were still plays that were USC Caleb Williams, you know, or even Oklahoma, where he is still making those big time throws, fitting into tight windows, and doing things well from extending the play. It's just putting it all together, you know. And like you touched on it pre-show, but like the Commanders game, right? Like, he led the game winning, what should have been the game winning drive, and then the Tyreek Stevenson Hail Mary thing happens and they lose. So like, that's a game that honestly kind of pushed that right there, changed their entire season as well. Like, ever since, like, from that game, I think they only won one or two more games after that, or just a couple, but they went straight off a cliff after that. So yeah, it's tough to see. But then, you know, to your point, they revamped the offensive line and then bringing in Ben Johnson. It's kind of hard not to be optimistic about this season
No doubt.
for Caleb with the talent that you've touched on. Like, he has the talent there. Like, within himself, he is a talented football player. And now with a better offensive-minded coach, a better supporting cast, and a better offensive line, I think it puts it in an interesting situation where you have to expect that he's better. But it also kind of, now you're in a situation with a guy who had a lot of expectation, is now you're almost doubling down on it because the situation got so much better that it's kind of like, okay, you have to be good this year now, or like, great. Not that he wasn't good, but you know, like, you really have no, there minimal excuses could be had this season. So, and it's interesting for a player that is kind of a polarizing player for some reason. Like, there's a very like hate-love relationship, I feel like, with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I mean, you make a fair point. Like the expectations are going to be high in Chicago. Like they and they should be. They really should be. Like to your point, it's going to be interesting to see what Ben Johnson can do with him though, because Ben Johnson's so good at scheming guys open and just taking the easy stuff. And like we just got done mentioning, Caleb doesn't always want to take the easy stuff, right? Sometimes he
No.
wants the home run all the time. So is Ben Johnson going to be able to find that balance between, okay, just get the first down, take the 6 yard out route, just take the easy stuff, and then when we need you to be special, when we're down by 10 points in the fourth quarter to Green Bay, and we need you to be like that special Caleb Williams that we saw at USC, then do that. But he's going to need to find that balance too, because like you said, the talent in the NFL is just a different level. Like you just can't run around back in the pocket. I mean, first of all, it pisses your tackles off. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
As former offensive linemen, both of us, Dakota, we know that pisses offensive linemen off when your quarterback's out back there running around. And dude, we just haven't been we really haven't seen a QB outside of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, which were interesting prospects in and of themselves, be able to do that consistently, right? Just be able to consistently evade pressure in the pocket, run around, look downfield, make throws. Like there hasn't been a lot of QBs be able to do that successfully in the NFL. For the longest time, people were just looking for the traditional pocket passer. That's not what Caleb is. Caleb wants those special plays outside the pocket. And I still think he can do that, but it's just not going to be at the clip that he was able to do it at USC. And he's got to understand that. Like to run a functional NFL offense, you have to take the easy stuff when it's there.
Yeah, and it's honestly just kind of the way that not even just the NFL, but college football is going in that direction. And I think Mahomes, like that 2017 class, kind of like the beginning of this, where like extender is just the type of quarterback a lot of guys are now. Like Cam Ward is that number 1 overall pick. That is how he wants to play. A lot of guys, it's not even like what we used to call scrambling quarterbacks. It's different than that. Like guys who look to just get out of the pocket and run if it's not there. They want to keep their eyes downfield, but they want to keep running around until something works out. And it is a dangerous game to play. And to your point, like the two anomalies are not what you should probably completely model your game after.
No.
Because it's not easy to replicate.
Yeah, exactly. And and that's why he has this sack avoidance issue, but I think you made a really good point earlier though, how like the offensive line, it was so bad in the beginning that it almost like kind of spooked Caleb in a way where he just seemed like he was playing scared at moments and he was just always like felt like he was going to get hit. So it's going to be interesting because that offensive line is going to be a lot better, like a lot better. We can almost guarantee that heading into 2025. So how is that going to change his play style? Like, is he going to feel more comfortable back there? It's going to be interesting, man. But I still think like Ben Johnson was the biggest get of the offseason. We made some offseason videos already about the Bears. That was the most crucial move of the offseason to me, because I think Ben Johnson, if he can unlock Caleb Williams, man, I think the Bears can absolutely win their division in 2025.
I completely agree. I think, again, expectations are going to be high in Chicago, and I think I as well have them for Caleb Williams this season, and it is going to be fascinating to your point earlier about Ben Johnson, unlocking Caleb, but also getting him to take the easy stuff. And, Ben Johnson is, as we've seen the past couple seasons, one of the best offensive minds in the game and scheme-wise. So we'll be fascinating to see what that Chicago offense does with the revamped offensive line and those additional weapons for him. So high expectations for the Bears. Well, that wraps up Caleb. So let's move on to the second overall pick. So this is where things were before the draft. I think it kind of got to this point where we thought Jaden would go second overall. There was the debate between him and Drake, but I feel like it had started to move the needle pretty heavily towards Jaden. But it confirmed it happened.
Top Golf.
Exactly. What you do is you take the quarterbacks to Top Golf, and then whatever guy you like the most, that's your guy. And clearly it worked. So the Commanders do go with Jaden Daniels off of the hot season that he had and take him second overall.
Well, it's funny. I think they did that again this year. I could be wrong about that, but I think I heard that they literally did the Top Golf thing again this season, but obviously not with quarterbacks, just with like different first round talent and whatnot. So they're all in on this Top Golf business because, like you said, for like, I don't know if it means anything, but it worked for them, man. It worked for them. They got their guy. And dude, he absolutely lit the NFL on fire, man. I mean, it's arguably the best rookie season of all time. Like, now we've had a lot of good rookie seasons recently, right? We just saw Stroud. Stroud was extremely good. Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, RG3, really all three of those guys in 2012 were phenomenal. So there's been some good rookie seasons in the past, the recent past. But I mean, you can argue Jaden's right up there with all of them, man. And he also had the postseason success, led the Commanders to the NFC Championship game, and was honestly solid in that game himself. So, yeah, dude. I mean, Jaden was phenomenal, dude. He was absolutely fantastic. And as far as supporting cast are concerned, if you take the Patriots out of it, the Commanders, just looking at the roster going into 2024, we're saying, okay, that's one of the worst supporting cast out of the rookie quarterbacks. And we just got done with our offseason video, dude, and we're talking about how the Commanders agreed with us, right? The Commanders felt like, okay, we were successful in 2024. We got the NFC Championship, but we're not complacent. We're going in, we're revamping this offense, getting Laramie Tunsil, getting Deebo Samuel. So they kind of revamped this roster in a way this offseason, taking advantage of their rookie contract quarterback and realizing, hey, there is a small window here where we have potentially a top 8 quarterback in the NFL. We potentially found an elite quarterback in the NFL based on his rookie season. Let's put the weaponry around him. Let's build up this offense and potentially continue to compete for championships.
They absolutely caught lightning in a bottle. And again, for the second straight year, the second overall pick looks the best in their first season. But even to a more extreme degree, as you kind of touched on, because there's a reason the Commanders were picking number 2 overall. They were not good. And that roster in combination with Dan Quinn coming in outplayed it greatly. But Jaden did specifically with an offensive line that was okay. But unlike Caleb, Jaden puts himself into harm's way a lot, but he's not necessarily I think his ability to move in the pocket and stuff does not typically lead to sacks at the high rate that Caleb does. He's a lot better at extending a play and making something out of it. And maybe after one season, at least the one season he played, was probably the best true scrambler in the NFL, which I think is fair to say because Lamar is obviously great at that, but he is a just incredible runner with the ball in his hands for design plays. But Jaden's ability to, escape the pocket and pick up something that wasn't there, get a first down, extend drives was phenomenal. And personally, I mean, I don't think he could have done more to exceed the expectations that I had for him. And I didn't really know what to expect, but I definitely didn't expect this of I think he almost had 4,500 yards total, over 30 touchdowns as a rookie is ridiculous.
Yeah. And honestly, I was worried about his sack avoidance coming out of college, but he was good at it his rookie season. Like, he wasn't as bad with a bad offensive line, right? I mean, they just replaced both their tackles in the offseason. So clearly their offensive line wasn't where they wanted it to be in 2024, but Jaden still did what he did. And you make a great point about his scrambling ability and his design run ability. Like, he is this second best running quarterback in the NFL, right behind Lamar Jackson. And I can, obviously can't put him ahead of Lamar right now, but but to your point though, is that Lamar does most of his work in the design run game. Jaden is a really good scrambler to your point, but dude, he's a cheat code on fourth down, man. He immediately got in that category of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, which I feel like are the only 2 quarterbacks in this category where, okay, you need a 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. Jaden's taking the ball. He's getting the ball. He's going to run it. Designed run game. And he was phenomenal with that last season, man. I mean, the Commanders were the most aggressive team in the NFL when it came to going for it on 4th down. And it's because of Jayden Daniels. That is the only reason they had the confidence that they had, because Jayden Daniels raised the floor of this offense with his running ability, dude. And I mean, like you said, there is literally nothing else he could have done. Nobody predicted the Commanders to make the playoffs, and let alone the NFC Championship game, dude. I mean, it was like I said, maybe the greatest rookie QB season of all time. That's not even a bold take, because I think you also have to take into account the expectations. The expectations were so low. It was basically Commanders and the Patriots were vying for worst roster in the NFL, right? Like they're fighting each other. Like who had the worst roster in the NFL in 2024? Commanders or Patriots? And but the Commanders made the NFC Championship game, and it's because of their rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels.
Absolutely. And now it puts them into an interesting. So, looking forward, I think, I clearly think highly of Jaden and what the Commanders have done, but the NFL is a tough, tough league to continue, and you don't necessarily progress linearly. You can get better overall and even a down to down level, but lose more games because that's just how volatile the NFL is. And so, what we just witnessed with the Texans, where CJ Stroud took a step back, and everybody was projecting the Texans to go 12-5, 13-4 after them exceeding that
AFC Championship game.
Exactly. Now you have a more extended version of that, where they did make their conference championship game. So people are going to be like, it's Super Bowl or bust already. There's going to be hot takes out there of people saying things like that, and the expectation, in my opinion, is just let's just get back to the playoffs and compete again. And that is, I think, a reasonable expectation to set for this roster that got better. They brought in Debo, they brought in Laramie, and had a solid draft class as well. But it is difficult to project this next season when, what is Jaden fully? We don't really know. Like even if this is his baseline of just what he is day in and day out, phenomenal. Like you are happy with what you got, but there's probably going to be some form of regressive pattern like we saw with CJ Stroud where you regress towards the mean a little bit.
I mean, it's hard not to when you set the baseline so high. Like when you had the greatest rookie quarterback season of all time, you had like insane stats, insane team success. Like it's hard not to take a step back. So Commanders fans, he might make the Super Bowl and prove us totally wrong, but I still think the roster needs help, especially defensively. Like they didn't do a ton of work on the defensive side of the ball, and Commanders fans know this. I mean, like Jaden really had to go out and do some QB dueling last season, like against the Bengals on Monday Night Football. Like that was like a high scoring affair, two really bad defenses and two really great quarterbacks going back and forth. It's like, I would expect more of that in 2025. Like the defense, I think is still not in great shape. So like team success, they could definitely regress. Now Jaden could too. Like you just said, dude, we just saw it with CJ Stroud. We see it all the time. A rookie quarterback. I mean, RG3 was more injuries and definitely not. Don't like to talk about injuries at all because it's part of the league though, right? It could always happen. It's a part of the league. And Commanders, I mean, obviously Commanders fans know that RG3 was their guy. But I think Jaden is at this point has shown enough where I'm like, okay, if he does stay healthy, like he's going to be at the very minimum fringe elite QB going forward, just because of how much he did his rookie year with how little he had. It was phenomenal, man. But as far as team success, dude, it's a tough division, right? Like the Cowboys just got a whole lot better. They did. They brought in, George Pickens, things like that. The Eagles, defending Super Bowl champions, nothing obviously.
Put 50, and that come back to front of the defense, put 50 on you in the NFC Championship game.
That's exactly my point. It's like and the NFC as a whole is getting better, dude. Look, I mean, we're talking about these quarterbacks. I mean, a lot of these dudes playing in the NFC, man. Like four out of the 6 we're talking about in the first round play in the NFC, and I mean those teams are definitely chances to make something happen. And also, you have the Packers. Like the NFC overall, if you're looking at it 3 years ago compared to now, is a whole lot better than it was, especially with QB play. So it's going to be hard to get back to the NFC Championship game and compete for a Super Bowl because the division's getting harder as a whole. But listen, I think it's possible. I just would say I would say, hey, Commanders fans, it's okay if y'all don't make it back. It's okay if he regresses a little bit. He's still, same thing with the Texans, right? I mean, the CJ Stroud is still fine. He took a little bit step back. Now, I will say the biggest difference I'd say between the Texans and the Commanders are, I think the Commanders did more in the offseason to prevent this from happening than the Texans did. Like the Texans brought in Stephon Diggs, but it's like, okay, Stephon Diggs already had his question marks. I feel like the moves the Commanders made kind of made me feel a little bit more or a little better about Jaden's, projection going forward, particularly in 2025.
I'm glad you mentioned the Bengals game because that was one of the best throws the entire season. Is that game-winning touchdown that he threw to Terry McLaurin was absolute beaut. And yeah, that was what I was, as you were talking about that is kind of what I thought of after saying the Texans thing is that the Texans offensive line regressed and they didn't add anything to it either. And that's what played a big role in CJ Stroud's regression is that their offensive line got substantially worse. And Stephon got hurt. Tank Dell got hurt. All of his weapons started going down. Nico missed time. So obviously injuries can play a role in everything. But to your point, the Commanders did things to help mitigate that. Because there's a chance Josh Connolly doesn't even start immediately, right? And then if they have injuries, you have a guy who's a first-round caliber player who can step in and start playing. You have Deebo Samuel now. So I think outlook-wise, I would agree. It's a lot less likely that the team and Jaden overall takes that kind of regressive to the mean type thing that CJ had. But I would also reiterate to Commanders fans, I wouldn't be thinking NFC Championship or bust. You want to get to a consistent place where you're competing, and if you just make the playoffs again this season, in my opinion, that is a massive win. You all are in a much better position at that point than where you've been, and it'll prove Jaden Daniels is your guy for sure, which we already think that. But I would say, expectations for him are probably really high as well because of the added pieces and how incredible his rookie season was. So it's going to be a matter of balancing that with the fact that at the end of the day, the roster got better, but it's still not it is substantially less than the Eagles. That's just objective. And that's where you got to get to. That Super Bowl champs were Super Bowl champs for a reason. So I would say, overall, really excited with where the Commanders are headed and where Jaden Daniels can take them.
Yeah, no question, dude. Yeah, I mean, all we're saying is don't be down on him if he regresses a bit because it's very possible. It's hard not to. That's how good he was his rookie year. Now it's also very possible he gets better. It's just going to be tough. When you set the baseline so high. But you never know, dude. And obviously his outlook is looking like one of the best in this class. So.
And I got to at least note that he also had out of 76 quarterbacks this season that were graded by PFF, he was the 8th highest passing grade, which is ridiculous for a rookie who played pretty much the whole season. He played in 17 games. So that's phenomenal. So Commanders fans, you have something to be incredibly excited for. So let's move on to the 3rd overall pick. So the debate was between Jaden and Drake, and then Jaden goes 2nd overall. Patriots get Drake May, who doesn't start right away, unlike the first 2 guys. But then comes in. Expectations are a bit different for him because of that. That also tapers things when you don't start right away, even though people knew he would be in there sooner rather than later. But he had one of the more interesting rookie seasons, I would say, of the 6.
Yeah, he did. I think not starting him was definitely the play. It would have actually been nice if they could do that all season. Now it got to the point to where, I think, Gerard Mayo was fighting for his job, obviously. Things changed midway through the season since the Patriots were so bad. And they're like, okay, we have to get a spark of some kind. We have to get Drake in there. But it was for his best for his development, man, because they had by far the worst supporting cast, right? We were just talking about the Commanders supporting cast. At least they had Terry McLaurin. The Patriots had nobody pretty much. I mean, it was no good receivers. The offensive line was the worst in the NFL. It was truly an abysmal supporting cast for Drake May. And so they were trying to protect him from that because, kind of like we were talking about with Caleb, you can create bad habits when you have such a bad offensive line. And he really didn't do that, man. He really overcame it in a way that was insane to me. I thought Drake May was honestly, if I ranked the quarterbacks coming out, I probably would have had him second. Would have been a big debate between him and Jaden. So he was a great prospect coming out, but I wouldn't have expected anybody to do anything in this Patriots offense. That's how bad it was. And he was great, dude. I mean, he had so many phenomenal moments, was really impressive as a runner. He showed a little bit of that at Carolina, but like
Yeah.
he was really good his year one in the NFL. Like his athleticism plays, man. It really does. He's sneaky athletic, as the analysts love to say. But yeah, man, he was really impressive with what he was working with his rookie season.
Definitely. And I probably would have been in the same boat. It would have been tough, but don't want to revision history for myself. I probably would have had Drake second. But would have been in the same boat as you, where it's like whoever goes to the Patriots, I just kind of feel sorry for them
Yeah,
because the state of the roster, the offensive line was terrible. When your receivers, your number one receivers, basically like Demario Douglas, like it's just not a good situation to be in. You also had a first-time head coach, that is important as well, who's a defensive-minded guy who's taking on a rookie quarterback. And all things considered, he did play very well given those that situation that he was in. And we kind of just touched on it with Caleb, where the bad offensive line can create bad habits and break you to a degree. But I feel like Drake, he had a good amount of interceptions that he threw, but he still had composure and he wasn't panicking, and it didn't seem like it completely broke the way that he approaches the game and playing quarterback. And he did have phenomenal moments, and I have to touch on the one that was personal, where he had that play against the Titans where he, at the goal line, he extends it for like a minute and a half. His left guard is just standing there, doesn't block a soul for the whole play, and then he throws a dot and they score. Like that was ridiculous to watch, and the way he had to run away and stuff. So it's interesting because he definitely had by far the least expectations of those top three because he went third and because he wasn't starting. But going into now 2025, it's also intriguing to look at him because I still feel like the expectations for him are a lot lower. Because we saw the situation was that bad and they helped, but it's still not, you still don't really feel good about it.
They had a good offseason. Like, again, point to our offseason video. I think I ranked them number 2 offseason. You had them in your top 5. I forget exactly where, but they had a good offseason, but it's still not where you want it to be, like you said. I mean, you're kind of relying on old man Stephon Diggs to, like, have a kind of a revitalizing season, if you will.
T-Rex arm Will Campbell has to start left tackle immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're relying on a rookie tackle. There's some question marks. There's definitely some question marks about the Patriots and their supporting cast, but it's definitely better. They definitely got a lot better. And I will say last year, it was so obvious right when Drake came into the offense, he raised the floor immediately, man. It was so obvious. Like you could just see, okay, this is a starting level quarterback. I'm not going to say he didn't show enough to me where I'm like, okay, he has potential to be elite. But it's kind of hard to evaluate, right, when you have such a bad supporting cast. So, but he did raise the floor immediately, and I think they should be better. Like it's kind of hard to get worse than where they were at.
Yes,
but they did enough, and I think they had a good enough draft. The draft, especially, the draft is going to be intriguing with how that plays out. But I think they've done enough where, okay, it can be viable now. Now, I'm not saying they're going to compete to win the division. It's it's basically Josh Allen's division and set until someone does something about it. But I think the Patriots will be better, dude. I think overall they will be better. You bring in Mike Vrabel, which is a guy who just wins with less, is how I'll put it. He always wins with less. And right now you kind of need that with the Patriots. You're still kind of lacking high-end elite talent at some of the more important positions. But who knows, man? Maybe this draft class can change that.
Yeah, and definitely adding pieces around him. You touched on Stephon, and love having, what he brings to the locker room, maybe a different thing, but love having that veteran presence. It's nice to have a guy who's been in the league that long to be a reliable receiver for a young quarterback. And then, the draft class of Kyle Williams and TreVeyon Henderson to add around him. I just don't think they did enough to the offensive line, and maybe their logic was that Drake made it work. But that would be my biggest concern still is the offensive line. But, Josh McDaniels is now the offensive coordinator along with Vrabel coming in. So hopefully that's a better situation for him to kind of develop, learn, and have an offense that fits him as well. So, one thing that's interesting already is of these top 3, which is part of why these teams were drafting this high, 2 out of the top 3 guys already have different coaches. They will be in a new system already, which is a tough thing. It's not easy to do. I mean, especially at the NFL level where these are not, you have to learn these playbooks. It's all different verbiage and everything. And it's all new to you in the first place. And now you immediately have to do that again. So that is also probably an underrated aspect of the game and at their age. So Drake will now be doing that, but assumably for both Caleb and him, a better version of it, right? Where it's an offense that'll probably fit them better and help them succeed a bit more. So, a lot of reasons to be optimistic now for the Patriots and for Drake May. But again, I think expectations would be let's just continue to get better and let's start competing more in games. But I would hold off on the playoff expectations.
No question. I think Patriots fans know that, right? Mac Jones came into the league, not lit the league on fire, but he was good. He was good, right? He was good right out the gate. They made the playoffs, and Patriots fans were excited about that. You kind of have to, after going through that, you kind of have to be like, okay, tamper expectations. We still have one of the worst rosters in the NFL. As it stands right now, it's still one of the worst in the NFL. But I think, listen, Drake May was obviously a better prospect than Mac Jones. Also think he probably played better overall, just like in the limited sample size. I will say, just like based on what Mac was dealing with it versus Drake. But like kind of like you said, it's this a multi-year rebuild here. Multi-year rebuild. Yes. Like obviously they emphasize protect Drake May, which is great. Like they went out, got Will Campbell 4th overall. You have to emphasize that, man. As a Colts fan, I know that you have to protect your franchise quarterback, and they're making that priority number one, which I think is really good. But again, it's going to take a couple years. I would look at 2026 to start competing for the playoffs and potentially making some noise in that division. It's just going to be tough, man. As fans of AFC teams, we know how tough it is with loaded QBs all over the conference. So. Listen, I feel good about where Drake May is, though, man. I would be optimistic. I think they have their franchise quarterback.
If I'm a Patriots fan, I feel good about our quarterback. And I know it is tough as a fan to just say we're punting on a season and you just have to accept what it is. But to be honest, I'm in the same boat as Titans. I don't think we're not going to compete in Cam Ward's first year, regardless of what he is most likely. So we have reasons to be optimistic. And I'm excited to see him kind of take a step forward now and what will probably be a better system for him. And at very minimum, just a better head coach and baseline of what this team will be around him. So, all right, that is the top three. So the QBs went 1, 2, 3. And then to your point earlier, the biggest shock, and I have to just share my personal experience on this. I was at the draft in Detroit, and it was really cool, being there. And when they announced Michael Penix at 8th overall to the Falcons, there was the biggest collective what the moment I've ever seen. Everybody was just sitting around, just pure shock of what did we just witness. And I feel like in the end it worked out, right? Like what they did worked. Their process worked, but it still was absolutely shocking at the time.
Absolutely, dude. I'll also share what I was doing. My wife went out to get me Zaxby's. Okay. I had a buddy over watching the draft, enjoying the NFL draft. She calls me. She tells me I have a flat tire. Like, okay, got to go change Callie's tire. And so while we're changing the tire, of course, I'm still playing the draft. I've got the draft up on YouTube TV. It's the new age. You can take TV with you. And then when I heard Michael Penix, I stopped what I was doing. I was like, what? What just happened? Because I mean, you signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal in the offseason. I'm sitting here thinking there's absolutely no chance that the Falcons take a quarterback. They were mocked at the time. They were mocked edge rusher pretty much every single mock draft I saw. A lot of times it was Dallas Turner in that spot, and they go Michael Penix Jr. And I was floored, man. I was floored because first of all, Michael Penix being the 4th quarterback taken in the class was shocking in of itself because a lot of people had JJ McCarthy as the 4th guy in the class.
Yep.
And then of course the Falcons signing Kirk Cousins in the offseason, drafting a quarterback with a top 10 pick. It was one of the biggest, shocking draft moments of my lifetime, dude. But I mean, talk about getting proven right. Pretty much immediately, right? Like we don't know if Michael Penix is the answer yet. He looks really, really good his first year in the limited sample size, but Dude, I mean, imagine if they were stuck with Kirk Cousins right now and no other quarterback on the roster. I mean, the Falcons would be looking at one of the most bleak 2025 outlooks out of any team in the NFL. They'd be right there with the division rival Saints. I mean, like that's seriously where their quarterback situation would be right now, because Kirk Cousins just completely lost it, right? It happens all the time. I mean, quarterbacks lose their arm. Kirk Cousins never had a good arm, but he lost any of it he had left, and he was just awful last season. Michael Penix comes in at the end of the year and really was phenomenal, dude. I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal. In the limited sample we got, he kind of finally unlocked some of those offensive weapons on the Falcons. I wouldn't say he fully unlocked Kyle Pitts, but he most definitely unlocked Drake London. Like Drake London looked like a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL with Michael Penix throwing him the ball. That's how good Drake London was at the end of last season. So it's going to be fascinating, man. He is easily, to me, the most fascinating prospect going forward from this class.
Yeah, and he, when that happened, on my mind was just like, man, the Falcons will do anything to not draft an edge rusher because of how many times they picked number 8 and then didn't do it when they took Bijan and like every time they're mocked. So, but to your point, Kirk did immediately show that the Achilles injury, like to your point, he didn't have a great arm, but like watching him play, it's like he was either afraid or he just can't use his leg when he throws. He cannot put anything behind his arm. And when you don't have a cannon for an arm, it means you don't have zip on the ball whatsoever. And that was the problem this season. Like, it's not that he just suddenly got worse and like made worse decisions. He just could not make the throws he used to.
Physically can't do it.
Exactly. So you're trying to throw the out route and now it's late because your arm's a lot weaker. So you can't put as much behind it. And it was unfortunate to see, but I mean, you bring up a really good point. If they don't take Michael Penix at 8 last year, do they take Jackson Dart 15th overall this year? Is that the situation that they're in?
Exactly.
Like it's fascinating to wonder what that would have been, but it works out. And to your point, he looks good. We have another lefty in the NFL now. We now have 2 lefties starting, which has become an even more of a rarity. But maybe that was what helped unlock Drake London and Kyle Pitts. They just needed a different rotation on the ball to get them involved. But yeah, he did look good. I mean, he steps in and they were kind of competing for the division at the end. And, they didn't end up getting that. And, they had a tough game against the Bucks. That was a back and forth night game. I won't forget that Penix looked really good in. Did have like 1 or 2 mistakes in there. But again, he's a rookie that hadn't played much yet by that point, and it's the crunch time into the season. So he kind of got thrust into one of the more awkward positions as a rookie quarterback where we're competing. We need you to go save our season. That's like the opposite of what happens with rookie quarterbacks, where you're Drake May and it's like our season's over in week 4. So let's just go ahead and let you play some. Like we have no expectations. So a unique situation that he get thrust into, and he walks away, and it's a small sample size, right? He started 3 games, played in 5. But of those 76 quarterbacks I mentioned earlier for PFF, he had the 6th highest passing grade. Now, obviously, small sample size makes it easier to have a higher one. Jaden's over a course of 17 games being 8 is a bit more impressive, but still says a lot about what the Falcons got at 8 overall.
Yeah, it really does, dude. His big playability stood out in a big way. I think that's really what unlocked Drake London, right? Is like he finally had a quarterback that can get him the ball down the field, and which they really haven't had in Atlanta. We always were so intrigued about that offense. Like, imagine if they didn't have Desmond Ridder. Imagine if they didn't have Kirk Cousins, who couldn't throw, and then you throw Michael Penix in there, and he did what he did. The fascinating thing about Penix is because, like, going into the draft, I said this at the top of the show, he was looked at as more of like a 2nd-round talent, back into the 1st-round talent. But what people forget is, had Texas came back in that college football playoff game, Dakota, had Texas end up winning that game, he was so phenomenal in that college football playoff game against Texas that I think if they had lost and he didn't have the abysmal performance in the national championship game, Penix would have been a lock top 10 pick, dude. That's how good he was. And I think the championship game left a bad taste in people's mouths. But of course, that that Michigan championship team was absolutely loaded on defense. So kind of give him a pass for that one anyways. But point being is that like he showed that in college. Like he has showed that ability to make those big time throws in college. And he did it immediately in the NFL with a really good supporting cast. I went, honestly, he's arguably has one of the better supporting casts out of this rookie group. Couldn't put him above JJ McCarthy because he has the best receiver in the NFL. But yeah, man, that's why they're fascinating next year, man. They're absolutely fascinating next year. And like you said, they were competing for a playoff spot. Had they beat the Panthers and the Bucks lost in Week 18, I believe they would have made the playoffs. Yeah. And that was an absolute QB duel in that Panthers-Falcons game at the end of the year. Penix, I think, had 7 big-time throws via PFF in that game. Highest PFF big time throw percentage in the NFL last season, outside of Joe Milton, who only appeared in 1 game. I mean, Penix was slinging it last year, man. Again, in a limited sample, but I think that's why he's the most intriguing prospect to me out of this class, because like he showed this high end ability with this really good receiving group that has been looking to break out for years now. So I think, man, the Falcons are going to be one of the more fascinating teams to watch next season.
And it shows that the little sample size that the Falcons got to see of him laid a mark, because they attack defense in this year's draft because they feel comfortable in what they've got. And now we will get to see a full season, hopefully, of Penix with Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Darnell Mooney and Bijan Robinson, an offense that looks pretty stacked. So the Falcons are going to be a really interesting team this season. The unfortunate part about them, we talked about our top off seasons. They didn't make our lists, and they are. I equate it to the Browns situation a little bit, where it's unfortunate that you have a rookie quarterback contract that you can't quite take advantage of yet, and that's going to hurt Penix more than anybody, because as we just talked about with Drake May and Jaden Daniels, they were able to go out in the offseason and just make whatever move they want to, because you have the cap space. When you are not paying your quarterback, you have cap space to work with. The Falcons don't, though. They are paying Kirk Cousins money right now, and they can't they can get out of it after the season, but they're still going to have a pretty big dead cap hit from it. So it is going to be unfortunate, and how we'll see the next, the rosters overall at a better position than those 2 guys were, especially in the beginning. But will be an unfortunate thing to watch with Penix is they may not be able to do as good of a job of building around him like these other teams can for a rookie quarterback. But, with the cast he's got, I think expectations are going to be relatively high for him this season. But more than anything, I think people are going to be just describe it as excited to watch him get a full season out there with those guys.
Yeah, you make a really good point about the rookie deal, and they still have that Kirk Cousins. I mean, Kirk Cousins is still on the roster as of right now.
Yeah,
doesn't feel like he is. Like if you ask fans on the street who Kirk Cousins plays for, they would say free agency, but he's not in free agency. He's still on the Falcons roster. He's not going to play for the Falcons next year, but he's on the Falcons roster. He also has a no trade clause. So although I don't know if he has any trade value at this point,
that's
like how many teams, like no way the Steelers are looking at Kirk Cousins to answer the QB question mark. Like he can't throw in a dome. What makes you think he can throw outside?
He's not doing it in Pittsburgh now.
Yeah, he's not doing it in Pittsburgh. Exactly. So it's going to be interesting how they kind of navigate this. Like if it's going to be like a post, like I think it's July 1st, maybe June 1st. I think it's July 1st, their little deadline or whatever, where you can cut them and save money. So that's probably the route they're going to go down, because I just don't see I don't think he'll have any trade value left. I don't even know if he's going to play next year, to be honest with you, man. I don't know if he wants to be a backup somewhere and he's already made enough money in the league or whatever, but it's going to hurt the Falcons. It's definitely going to hurt the Falcons to build around Penix, and I don't think they expected him to start this early, man. I think the plan really was let him sit for 2 years, develop behind Kirk Cousins, compete for the division while Kirk Cousins is there, which was the expectation. Absolutely was the expectation heading into 2024. But things changed, man, and honestly, after getting, absolutely drugged. They were absolutely drugged through the mud after taking Michael Penix. And really, in hindsight, the real issue was, why did you sign 36-year-old Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles, not knowing that he can't play football anymore. Like you should probably figure that out before signing him.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they made the right decision by saying, "Hey, we need to overinvest in quarterback. We Kirk Cousins is not going to be the quarterback here 10 years from now, but by overinvesting, drafting Penix in the top 10, now they have found their quarterback that will likely be playing for them in 10, 15 years time."
Yeah, and it does make me wonder, like, how did you not watch Kirk Cousins throw a football? Like when you were debating signing him, I know he was coming off the injury. Like I imagine he like sent them a tape and he was like, yeah, here's me slinging it. And it would be like him throwing and then cutting to like a Mahomes pass that's just 60 mile an hour dart. Yeah, it's just completely edited. He's like, yeah, I still got it. But it is, you bring up a very good point. And it is, if you were planning to do that all along, why bother signing Cousins? And their plan has derailed, but I will say it feels like they've done a decent job of pivoting and not feeling like things are a disaster or collapsing around them. And they've built the defense up now to help compete right now. And I think it'll be fascinating to see what the Falcons do and what Penix is in a full season. So, moving on to the next guy who we probably won't be able to spend a ton of time on because we didn't get to see him this year. So unfortunately, JJ McCarthy gets injured in the preseason and has to miss the whole season. What if in terms of what could have happened this season? Because obviously we now see Sam Darnold go on to have like an MVP caliber best season of his career, which really what it does, funnily enough, I think that happening makes JJ's expectations go up even more. I think his expectations almost are higher now, than going into last season because now it's proven Kevin O'Connell is a quarterback whisperer. He just is. And now it's like you've got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. You've got arguably the best 1-2 punch in the NFL with TJ Hawkinson. So going to be fascinating to see what happens there with him and, going into what we would have all considered last year as the best situation from a pass catcher's perspective, especially.
I agree, man. I think from a pass catcher situation, it is definitively the best in the NFL. I mean, Justin Jefferson is the number one receiver in the league. And then Jordan Addison is probably a number one on most teams, dude. That's how good Jordan Addison is. And then, like you just mentioned, they have a top 8-ish tight end and Hawkinson. JJ McCarthy's going to be interesting, man. Like you said, we can't evaluate his 2024 season because it didn't happen. But evaluating Sam Darnold's 2024 season, okay, it's like, okay, well, Sam Darnold, the guy whose career was essentially just done, like, right? It was dead in the water. He got a 1-year, $10 million contract with the Vikings, complete bridge deal. It wasn't even positive he was going to start, right? Like, if McCarthy doesn't get hurt, McCarthy might start last year. And we might not ever see Darnold. And then, who knows the ripple effect of that, obviously, because Seattle just signed Darnold. But like to your point, it is interesting because it's like, well, now the expectations have risen because it's like, okay, it seems like Kevin O'Connell can bring in any quarterback he wants and have success. Like we're just talking about how Kirk Cousins fell off. Of course, he had the injury, but before that, I mean, Kevin O'Connell raised Kirk Cousins up and he raised Sam Darnold up. And now you have a guy in JJ McCarthy who was very talented. He was extremely talented at Michigan, led them to a national championship, but just was never expected to be the reason they were winning games, right? He was never expected to be the guy that's, slinging it in the fourth quarter to make the big play, to come back. They were all about running the ball, playing good defense, and winning that way at Michigan. So it's going to be interesting bringing JJ McCarthy in, who I believe has the tools, right? Like that's why he was kind of talked about the way he was last year heading into the draft because people saw the tools that McCarthy had. He definitely has the tools. Now you give him Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Kevin O'Connell. It's going to be absolutely fascinating. He's one of the biggest X factors in this class. Like we haven't seen him yet. So he's basically a rookie. But he also has arguably the best situation. I mean, they just revamped the interior of the offensive line, bringing in basically 2/5 of the Colts offensive line and Will Fries and Ryan Kelly, and also drafted Donovan Jackson. So it's going to be interesting, man. Like I think it's it would be hard for McCarthy to screw this up, right? Like it really would be. It would be pretty tough for JJ McCarthy to screw this up. It's possible. We've seen it happen, but like this is one of the most loaded offenses in the entire league.
And one of the things that I think he was one of the best at in this entire class is he kind of gets thrown into that game manager world, is what I would call it. You know, he didn't turn the ball over a lot in college. It's part of what helped win Michigan a national championship, is that he just did not turn the ball over. So that helps a lot. And then he did what was needed of him. But you add that into an offense like this, where he has the tools, he has the physique, he has the talent. And then you add the Kevin O'Connell factor. And going into last season, I think expectations would have been pretty high for a team that's expected to make the playoffs with the roster that they had. But like we just touched on, in a weird way, Sam Darnold's success has now raised the expectations for JJ McCarthy this next season, because Kevin O'Connell has shown if he can take who we thought was career over, 2018 third overall pick quarterback who was seeing ghosts and career was done, and make him look like an MVP candidate, then what in the world can he do with a guy like JJ McCarthy? And same thing with Kirk, right? Like doing that with both of them, where they're a little bit older guys that are limited, you know, physicality wise and like athleticism wise, and then you throw in JJ McCarthy. So I'm excited to see what he does. And obviously Justin Jefferson has been dominating since he's been in the league. But we'll be very curious to see how that is impacted by having a quarterback like JJ McCarthy now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could argue, like, as far as ceiling is concerned, it might be the highest ceiling a Vikings quarterback has had since Justin Jefferson has been a Viking. So
Yeah.
that's like, I would say the range of outcomes for this Minnesota season is probably the most vast out of these rookie quarterbacks, right? Like it could be
Maybe in the
phenomenal.
NFL entirely.
Yeah, exactly. In the NFL entirely, exactly. Like it's truly gonna be fascinating because they could just come out of the right out of the gate, kind of like last year, and just light the league on fire with the best weapons in the league. JJ McCarthy looks phenomenal. Kevin O'Connell, the QB whisperer, or it could go really poorly. Like you could see a guy who just, isn't comfortable back there, doesn't show that he has what it takes to be a franchise quarterback. So it's going to be fascinating to watch, man, see what he does.
Yeah, it really is. Coming back from a knee injury as well is always tough, and how that affects him as, his athleticism and just throwing ability. So hopefully he has recovered fully, is fully healthy by the time the season starts, and then hopefully nothing else happens. Because, I don't want to jinx anybody, but with a quarterback group like this, it's kind of hard. Like, do you expect JJ to be the one that gets injured because it's just such a likely thing, and or become injury prone? And like, we're seeing 5 quarterbacks who all look really good so far. It almost makes it seem like the 6th also being good would be a statistical anomaly. Like somebody's got to not be good.
That's really true. And it's also one season of sample. So like any 6 of these guys could end up being bad or Hall of Famers. But the thing is, like, we've seen this before. Like we've seen absolutely loaded quarterback classes before. You look at the John Elway, Dan Marino, Jim Kelly class. Like you can get several Hall of Famers out of one class, but at the end of the day, like they're going to be ranked at some point, right? 10 years from now, when we're still doing Stop the Takes and we're doing our 10-year rankings of the quarterback class, one of them's got to be 6th at the end of the day. One of them's got to be the worst of the group. Question is, who's that going to be? I'm not predicting it's going to be JJ. It's just so hard to know. Like right now we have as little evidence on JJ McCarthy than anyone, right? Like he wasn't heavily relied on in college, so we don't have a ton of college evidence. We have 0 NFL evidence. So, but it's going to be fascinating, man. Like I say, he is the biggest X factor out of this 2024 class.
Yeah, and I'm excited to watch it. Fascinated to see what the Vikings do and how JJ looks, and hopefully, he comes back healthy and fully capable. So, on to the 12th overall pick. So JJ goes at 10. And then 12th overall was Bo Nix. So another guy who was kind of fringe first round. I think most would have said early second, but with all the quarterbacks flying off the board, it also seemed like Sean Payton just really liked him. I think he was their guy from the beginning. But he goes, and he is this entire class is an interesting take, and I think it's worth touching on it with him because he was, I think at the time, right, he had the record for like most games played or some stats that Dylan Gabriel just went on to break because he started his career at Auburn and quite frankly didn't look good.
No.
And then transfers and ends up looking great. And same thing with, Penix and Jaden Daniels. Of these 6 guys, 3 of them had 5+ year careers in college and transferred as well. And so very interesting to see. And they also did that play a role in their success immediately? Who knows? But Bo Nix being the last one and going into a situation that I think was just another one that's kind of like you didn't really know what to expect from the Broncos post Russell Wilson.
You really didn't. I mean, he's just interesting as a whole, man. Start with the draft. Like I said, the Broncos were kind of in a spot the Steelers are in this year where it's like they just didn't have one. Like Russell Wilson just left the roster. They literally did not have a starting quarterback. And they got the 6th out of the class. Like we just got done saying how like it's a statistical anomaly for 6 QBs to be getting in class, and they got the 6th one in the draft class. But he really looked good his rookie year, man. He really did. He was a fascinating player in college. Like Auburn Bo Nix and Oregon Bo Nix feel like 2 completely different players. Like from a performance standpoint, from a stylistic standpoint, they were just completely different. Like Bo Nix at Auburn was extremely volatile, some really special plays in there, but some really, really ugly plays on his tape. And then Oregon Bo Nix was, you saw less of the special, but he just took care of the ball, like more of a game manager type at Oregon, had some good team success doing that. He was a fascinating prospect, man. And like, again, a guy that was kind of viewed more so as a 2nd round fringe 1st round talent in the draft. But the way the board fell, I mean, like once the 5th QB, like once Penix went and JJ went, I just expected the Broncos to take the Bo Nix, just the way it was going. It's like all these guys are going to go. And if the Broncos don't do it, then the Raiders will end up taking Bo Nix. Like it was just one of those things. But I mean, dude, I think it was a really good fit with Sean Payton. Like I felt like Sean Payton, like I think there aren't many guys, like obviously the top 3 guys and maybe McCarthy, but I almost feel like Sean Payton probably liked Bo Nix more than most of the quarterbacks in this draft class. And it seemed like going back to his college stuff, it seemed like his NFL season to me, Dakota, was kind of a mixture of Auburn and Oregon Bo Nix, like a good balance, I would say, of both, because you saw the special in there. I mean, he made a couple throws this year, man, up the seam where I'm like, dang, I didn't know Bo Nix had that kind of arm strength in him. I really
Troy Franklin then dropped.
Yeah, exactly. Troy Franklin dropped a few of those, honestly, last year.
Yeah, let him down.
But he also did a good job with like playing within Sean Payton's offense, right? Taking the easy stuff, taking the easy yardage and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting, man. If Sean Payton can get that balance, get that like the great plays out of Auburn Bo Nix and like the game manager, Drew Brees-esque Oregon Bo Nix, and combine those 2 players together, man, it's going to be fascinating.
I think you nailed it there in talking about how he looked like both. And I also think Sean Payton did a good job of scheming up both, right? Like they want him to be both of those guys because they threw a lot of screens. Marvin Mims scored on like a 40-yard one at one point in one of their games. I remember that. But he also had those moments where he's like, all right, Bo Nix, you can sling it. Let's take a shot downfield. And he nailed a few of them and he didn't on others. And that's part of it, right? Like you want him to feel comfortable taking those shots. And having guys preferably that can catch them all the time is nice. So that helps. But yeah, I think he probably, it's tough to even say. I would say maybe he did even surprise me more than Jaden Daniels this year because we got to watch as SEC fans him at Auburn. And it's hard to get that out of your mind of watching him there because if you did it, if you know him from his time at Oregon, go back and watch his Auburn tape. Just do it in your free time because you'll understand why it's impossible to like believe what he became. But it's honestly a really cool story to see a guy develop that much. Yes. And Dan Lanning probably deserves a lot of credit for that and what he's pumping out there in Oregon right now. But yeah, I think you're completely right. Sean Payton got a guy that fits what he wants to do, that can do the safe stuff and take what's given, but also do the creative things, do the downfield shots, and he can typically hit them.
Yeah.
And he graded pretty well from PFF this season as well. Obviously, threw the most touchdowns of all the rookies with 29. And I forgot where that landed overall in the NFL this season, but he was up there as a rookie. So, I think Bo Nix definitely came in and immediately rounded out a top 6 quarterback class that is fascinating moving forward. Is the NFL in great hands from a young quarterback perspective?
This is easily the best quarterback class since 2020. 2020 is kind of like the last great QB class of guys that just starters all over the league, high-end starters in Herbert, Burrow, and Love, I would say. I mean, Hurts just won a Super Bowl. Let me not disrespect Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl champion.
And Tua, I mean, he's
starter. Like I said starters around the league.
Above a lot of other rookie classes still, but
no doubt. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like there hasn't been a good quarterback class since that class. Let's be honest. There's a lot of quarterback classes with
horrible ones.
Horrible. Like we got Mr. Irrelevant from 2022. We have Bryson, CJ, whatever they are from 2023. And the 21 class, I mean, all those dudes are about to lose their jobs. It's basically Trevor Lawrence and everyone else who are, I mean, Justin Fields is technically a starter, but we'll see how long that lasts. But point being, it's like this class has a chance to be a lot like the 2018 class and the 2020 class to take up a lot of the elite quarterback talent in the NFL. That's how good it's been. But to wrap up Bo Nix, I will go back to the Auburn thing because you make a good point, man. It was hard. Like, I'm going to be honest. I didn't think Bo Nix was going to be good. I'll just be honest, Broncos fans. I just didn't. He was the 6th quarterback off the board, and he was so bad at Auburn. Like, Will Levis-esque at Auburn, right, Dakota? Like,
that's a good comp.
A lot of mean plays, dude. A lot of horrible fumbles, horrible interceptions. Like, that's just how he was at Auburn. But like you said, dude, I mean, he exceeded our expectations big time. Probably close to he was not as good as Jayden Daniels. I'm sorry, Broncos fans, he wasn't. Jayden Daniels was phenomenal and what he does in the running game and whatnot. But I mean, Bo Nix, could you say he's the second best in this class right now? I mean, from their rookie season, just how they played, I won't say projection wise. That's just not me being honest. I wouldn't project him being the second best going forward. But out of the rookie year, out of what we've seen so far, you could definitely argue from a sample size perspective and everything that Bo Nix was the second best quarterback in this 2024 class.
I completely agree with that. And as we talk to the fans like we've done so far, I think Broncos fans have a lot to be excited about. Also led them to the playoffs. So one of only 2 quarterbacks to do that alongside Jayden Daniels. And regardless of the outcome, honestly, that Bills game was pretty close for a while as well. Like they stayed in that, and it was just tough to get the offense going enough. And they had, I think actually, and I may be remembering incorrectly, but I think there was a Troy Franklin drop that would have been a big play in that game.
Easy to assume, to be honest.
It is. And I'm pretty sure there was that could have changed things a bit. And he actually had like a 40-yard bomb, maybe 2 Franklin in that game as well, that made things really interesting. So a lot to be excited about. And it does seem like Sean Payton has his guy in there, which is a fantastic thing for Bo Nix and his progression. But could also see another thing like Jayden Daniels, where we may see a slight regression to the mean. I will say that the Broncos roster is pretty solid overall, and their defense is phenomenal. I mean, it was incredible last season, and it got better by adding Hufanga and Jahdae Barron to that secondary. So team-wise, I could see the Broncos get better, but Bo Nix could still regress to the mean, and that's possible.
I totally agree with that, man. And it feels like just yesterday they were giving up 70 to the Dolphins, man. And then all of a sudden they have one of the best defenses in the league. It's honestly, it kind of speaks to the volatility of defense as a concept. Like it's not as consistent year in, year out as, other things. But the Broncos got a lot better, man. And you should be excited as a Broncos fan because Sean Payton has clearly made this team better. Like Sean Payton, honestly, like he was already a great coach, like the Drew Brees things, but it's always hard, right? It's like, how do you evaluate Bill Belichick? It's maybe this is another offseason topic, but it's hard to evaluate the coach when you have such an elite level quarterback, right? And Sean Payton had Drew Brees all those years. So it's hard to like, how much credit do you give
True.
Sean Payton or how much credit do you give Drew Brees? In his little stint with the Broncos, I'm already seeing, okay, Sean Payton deserves a lot of that credit in that credit pie, if you will, because he clearly, like, right away made the Broncos better. Even with Russ, like, Russ looked a lot better under Sean Payton. And in Bo Nix's rookie season, made Bo Nix look really good right out the gate in the NFL. So Broncos are absolutely a team that could get back to the postseason next year. But like you said, I mean, it's really the case with any of these rookie quarterbacks. It's always possible for your guy to get worse. Like, just remember, we'll reiterate again because it's so important, man. Because how were people talking about CJ Stroud after one season? I mean, we're talking about this guy like he's going to be a top 5 quarterback for 10 to 15 years.
Some proclaiming he already was.
Exactly.
Crazy.
Exactly. And that's, just give it time. Just give it time. Like, we will see after. I always say, give him the rookie deal. Like, let's wait until the rookie deal and let's say, okay, the rookie deal is up. Who's the best out of these guys? Then we'll have a good understanding of who truly is the best at that point. Because like on the flip side of that, Bryce Young was abysmal, right? He was absolutely abysmal. He was literally possibly the worst, like right up there with Jamarcus Russell as the worst first overall pick in NFL history with how he looked through a year and a half. But now look at Bryce, right? Like Bryce, like the Panthers believe in him again. Like, so these things can change. Like, you have to wait for a bigger sample to really like say definitively, okay, this guy's the best or that guy's the best. Like, any 6 of these guys, I wouldn't be surprised if any 6 of these guys end up being the top quarterback from this class.
Yeah, and that is exactly the point on what our pod's all about, right? Is stopping the takes of the fact that it is okay to not know. Like, and I know that's not great content for some people of wanting just proclamations of who's the next Tom Brady or who's this, but at the end of the day, we don't know, and no one does. Like, even after what we've seen of one season of these guys, and to kind of reiterate that point in the opposite direction, we're sitting here telling Broncos fans there's a chance Bo Nix regresses, right? But if we are sitting here again in a year and he did regress slightly or maybe further than we thought, I would start saying the opposite as well, to say to Broncos fans, you should expect him to get back to closer to where he was. He's going to fall somewhere in between that if it happens. So it's okay to not know, and we don't know, especially with some of these guys who only played in so many games. So, but it's still a fun process in terms of evaluating, you know, the expectations around these guys, where they're headed, and, you know, touching on the Broncos draft too a little bit, where they brought in RJ Harvey and Pat Bryant, 2 guys Sean Payton really wanted that now help build around Bo Nix and his ability in the passing game. So again, exciting time for all of these teams in terms of having a young quarterback that you can build your franchise around. So we'll touch on 2 guys really quickly. We've been going for a second here. On the guys that were later round picks that actually played a little bit. That's Spencer Rattler, who played in like 7 games, who unfortunately just was not good. And the Saints roster was bad. The Saints this past season were bad. Coaching, everything was just not very good. So it's another one of those where it's a bad situation, but he also just played really badly. Another guy that we have seen closely and has ripped our hearts out in front of my eyes directly on the field in Columbia. But another guy who kind of had like high projections, one of these like Quinn Ewers is what I would put him at, where a year ahead, he was projected like, I think Renner did it too. I think Mike Renner did it.
Yeah.
PFF
First
at the time
overall.
had him number 1 overall, and he goes in like the 5th round or whatever. So he looked pretty rough in his first season, but will be competing for the starting job for the New Orleans Saints.
He really will be, man. That's the interesting thing about Rattler. He wasn't good. However, would you be shocked if he starts some games next year with Tyler Shuck at the helm? It's like, it's Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler, man. That's interesting. Good luck, Saints fans. That's what I'll say. I'll say good luck.
Yeah, he was 68th out of 76 PFF passing grades. So, yeah, we feel for you. We'll become a support system throughout the season. We'll have a segment dedicated to you all. And then the other guy who we have to give a little bit of love to is VFL. But technically, as of right now, the biggest big-time throw percentage in the NFL, the highest passing grade in the NFL without a minimum attempt. Yeah, without minimum attempts. Yes. But Joe Milton in his 1 game played well enough to earn getting traded for.
Wasn't it against the Bills backups too? if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. Yeah. Well,
And they
we'll still
lost
give
the
him
first
credit.
overall pick because of it as well.
Still give him credit. I
He
mean,
helped the
honestly,
Titans out, so
yeah, true. Yeah, Joe Milton's interesting, man. I think he could become a higher end backup. It's going to be fascinating to see if the team ever takes a chance on those tools because the tools were elite. Like just the arm strength and I mean, even showed some running ability that we didn't see a lot at Tennessee in that his limited sample. I thought the Patriots trading him away was kind of interesting. That's an interesting
yeah.
decision. Don't know why they would make that kind of decision, but love it for the Cowboys. You know, trading for a guy like
Yeah.
that, like I said, could end up being a higher end backup. Which you're never gonna know. You never know when you're gonna need your backup quarterback, man. And also Cowboys fans know pretty intimately that even when you have a starter in place, sometimes drafting a backup in the fourth round, I believe Dak was in, can work out. Can work out sometimes. So trading for one, kind of same thing. So yeah, Joe Milton, interesting, and it would be nice to see if he ever gets a chance.
Yeah, dude, as an absolute cannon, but accuracy, again, watching him first person was his issue. He did have like an 80-yard touchdown run. It was against one of the bad teams we played. I can't remember who, where we ran a read option like the first play and he just took it 80 yards to the house. Fascinating prospect, but yeah, it is intriguing. The Patriots traded him away. I guess they're just like, we've got Drake, but it's interesting you get rid of a kind of reliable backup. But do like that from the Cowboys perspective because you've also seen Dak get hurt a few times and horrible freak accidents a couple times as well, which is really sad for him. But having a guy like that you could potentially plug in as your backup and see what he can do with a roster that's pretty solid is interesting. So he'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on. But yeah, I think he's going to cap out as like a high end backup that pops in sometimes, makes a 70-yard bomb, and then people talk about it for a week or two.
Agreed.
All right. That is wrapping up evaluating the 2024 QB class. All right. So won't do the full scale career wise, but let's do for 2025 since we did a lot of projecting. Right now, who do you think will have the best 2025 season of these quarterbacks?
2025 season. I'll give you 2025 and career. I think it'll be fun. This has been my prediction going forward. I think 2025, man, this is tough, but I'm going to say the same for both. I think Caleb Williams is going to figure it out, man. I do. I think you could argue Caleb was the worst out of the starters last year. You really could make that as an argument, but I think the Bears did everything right this offseason, man. I think they did everything right. And this isn't to take away from any of the other quarterbacks, right? I think Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams could literally be like what we saw out of Peyton and Brady for years, man. Like it could be that level of same conference going back and forth in the playoffs. Like kind of like better comparison would be right now with Mahomes and Josh Allen. Like that's even better comparison from a stylistic perspective. So like you're seeing that right now, they're going back and forth. Like that could be what Jayden and Caleb are. I think that's the debate for me. Is it going to be Caleb or is it going to be Jayden going forward? But I do have to throw out an X factor as well. Kind of the guy that I'm looking at, or kind of dark horse, I will say, for like best 2025 and career, Michael Penix. Michael Penix is my dark horse contender for this because he showed so much high-end play his rookie year in the limited sample. And I think the supporting cast is so good and it's a winnable division. I also have to throw that out. Like it's a winnable division. Like the Bucs have kind of solidified themselves as the best team in that division, but I could easily see the Falcons overthrowing them. But I will also say, before I bring it back to you, man, that any 6 of these guys could end up being Hall of Famers and like the best, like they all showed something their rookie year outside of JJ McCarthy. And I believe JJ McCarthy is in the best situation and can show what some of these other guys showed. So it truly is one of the best QB classes we've seen in quite some time since, like I said, that 2020 class. And several of these guys, in my opinion, will end up being some of the best in the league.
I love it. I think for my 2025 season, I think I'm going to go with Penix. And my reasoning is that he's almost going to be like a rookie again in a way where you don't have a lot of tape on him, so he can kind of step in. And with the cast around him, I think that he could statistically have one of the better seasons of these guys as Jaden and Bo maybe take slight steps back. And then I would throw JJ as the dark horse there of just like, we don't know, but his cast, to your point, he has Justin Jefferson. It's going to be kind of hard not to throw 20 plus touchdowns when you got Justin Jefferson. So I think we could easily be sitting here thinking he had the best season just from a statistical output perspective. And then if I had to make the take of, I'm going to go Jaden. And it's the baseline, right? It's the baseline of that running ability, and he stays healthy, is that he will always have a baseline higher than pretty much everybody else here because he adds that. And I think even if you threw 20 to 25 touchdowns per year, single-digit interceptions, you're never throwing for 30. You're not throwing for like 4,000 plus yards. I think that the rushing ability always elevates things enough that you could say baseline-wise he's had the best career. So, but to your point, I will reiterate that it's a fascinating group of guys, man. It really is. And I kind of rooting for all of them too. Like I don't have a reason not to. I want to see them all succeed. And I'm a bit jealous of the fans of these teams, to be honest.
Same,
you know, him and I are
Commanders.
Yeah, especially the Commanders. Like, you know, you're in the AR boat with Anthony Richardson. I'm now on the Cam Ward experience, which I feel good about, but I have no idea what's about to happen. But if I was a fan of any of these teams, I'm feeling pretty damn good about where we're at as a franchise in the future. So a fascinating class, and, you know, one of the best in a long time. And we'll see if we sit here next year saying even bigger things, that it's easily one of the best in a long time. And we start going back as far as the 90s and 80s to that Dan Marino class. So.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it really could be. I think that's the potential. Like, they showed that potential in their rookie seasons. And listen, I was heavily debated the career question between Jaden and Caleb. I think both of those guys' ceilings are so high. But the difference is Jaden's the only one out of this class that has shown true elite play. Like, he was truly elite his rookie season, which is so impressive as a rookie. So he could absolutely be the guy that ends up being the best out of this class. Wouldn't be shocking at all.
Absolutely. Well, this not gonna lie, this was longer than I thought it would be, but it was a really good discussion. Appreciate the people that tuned in. Please like, share, subscribe, leave us some comments. Let us know what you think of these 6 guys, overall opinions on them coming in, and what your expectations are for them this season. We love to see the feedback and interact. But yeah, I will be doing another one of these, I think. Don't know for sure when, but we want to do the same with the 2023 class. Less guys to talk about, but very interesting guys in there as well. So we'll be doing a 2023 QB class evaluation as well soon. But yeah, thanks again for everybody for tuning in. And until next time.
Thanks for talking ball.